This is the story of the richest country on the planet, where it's almost forbidden to look rich. Everyone is born a millionaire, but rides a bicycle. Billionaires take the bus, beer costs $13, and in the summer, the sun forgets to set. 3 in the morning, it's as bright as noon, and people are out on the street diving into icy water on purpose, smiling. Sounds unbelievable, right? But that's just an ordinary day over there. A country that spent the whole year in the dark and now has 3 weeks to live 12 months worth of happiness. That, my friend, is Norway in the summer. And I know you clicked because of the blonde in a bikini on the cover, didn't you rascal? This is the only place in the world where the law requires you to leave the house armed. And it's not because of criminals, It's because of an animal that's almost 3 meters long. Oh, and since we're in World Cup season, did you know this is the land of the only national team that Brazil has never managed to beat? That's right. So come with me. First, let's get our bearings, because some people think Norway is just a little cold town with a sled. It's not. Norway is kind of like a backbone, a long, thin country stretched from bottom to top, clinging to the side of Europe and going up until it almost touches the North Pole. If you stretched it out on a map of Brazil, it would go from Sao Paulo all the way past Manaus. Huge. And do you know how many people live in this whole big country? 5.5 million. That's fewer people than live just in the city of Rio de Janeiro. The country is huge and almost empty. And this whole coastline is carved up by fjords, those giant stone walls that plunge straight into the sea, with waterfalls streaming down from the top. It's the kind of landscape that looks photoshopped. Now, the main character of the Norwegian summer isn't the mountain, it's the sun. And here's where the first crazy thing comes in. In a good part of Norway, from the north upwards, the sun literally doesn't set. That's not just a figure of speech. For weeks on end, it just skims close to the horizon and then starts rising again. Midnight looks like late afternoon. It's the famous land of the midnight sign. In Oslo, the capital, it never really gets dark. The sky stays a soft evening blue all night long. But don't think it's sunny everywhere, because it's not. There's a city called Bergen, beautiful, colorful, nestled between mountains and the sea. That's one of the rainiest places in all of Europe. It rains more than 200 days a year there. It rains so much that locals joke that if a tourist sees the sun in Bergen, they think it's the apocalypse. Imagine Salvador, but wet and cold, without the Axe music to warm you up. So when the sun really comes out, it's like a national holiday. And what does that sun do to people's minds when it finally shows up? It makes them go crazy with happiness, because Norwegians have spent the whole winter in the dark. And that's where the dark side comes in, which I'll show you at the end. The same sun that never sets in the summer disappears for months in the winter. This paradise of light has an evil twang. But the real burning question is this: how did a people who spend half the year in darkness build the richest, happiest, and most organized country in the world? And why do they go so wild when the sun comes out? Hold on, we'll get there, because there's something about the Norwegian summer that shocks every Brazilian, and it starts exactly when the sun comes out. You need to understand one thing. In Norway, real summer lasts about 3 weeks. 3. The rest is cold, wind, and rain. So when that sun finally shows up, the whole country goes into a state of emergency. A happiness emergency. It's something surreal for me as a Brazilian. On the first truly warm day, the office empties out. Seriously, the boss looks out the window, sees the sun, and sends everyone home. There's even an informal term for this: sunny day, day off. Imagine that happening in Brazil. Your boss looking at the blue sky and saying, "Guys, it's beautiful out there, go enjoy it." I would be off work all the time since I live in the northeast of Brazil. And what do they do with all that sun? They take off their clothes and jump in the water. But not at Copacabana Beach, no. In Oslo, people jump straight into the harbor, right in the middle of the city, into water that's maybe 18 degrees if you're lucky. There are wooden decks everywhere, people in bikinis and swim trunks, sunbathing on concrete, kids jumping off the pier, everyone throwing themselves into that icy sea and coming out screaming with joy. It's that cover photo scene: good-looking people, blue water, buildings in the background, right in the middle of the city. And look, check out this blonde who's about to walk by in a bikini right in front of you. Easy with your neck there, champ. Don't twist your neck like an owl just to pretend you're not looking. Relax, nobody cares here. Everyone's half naked, enjoying life, sunbathing on concrete like it's the French Riviera. Except the Riviera has warm seas, and Norway has that water that freezes anything. And by the way, they pretend they don't even feel it. Actually, it's impressive. A Brazilian woman dips her toe in the water and already screams. A Norwegian woman dives right in, smiles, and even asks if you're not coming in too. Are you up for it? And it doesn't stop at the cold water. There's the sauna religion. They go into a wooden box at 80, 90 degrees, sweat it all out, and then, believe it or not, they run out and jump into the freezing sea and then come back. And they jump in again, voluntarily. They think this is the pinnacle of human existence. There are Norwegians who do this with their eyes closed on a Sunday morning, thinking they're at a spa. You, an average Latin American, would do this once on a dare and talk about it for the rest of your life. There's a beautiful name for all of this, friluftsliv, which means something like life outdoors. It's almost a national philosophy, the idea that you have to be outside, in nature, no matter what. And in the summer, this becomes a craze. Picnics in the park at 11 at night with the sun still shining, people camping anywhere, barbecues by the fjord, everyone in shorts in a country that was freezing just last month. And here's the detail I found strange. In Norway, there's a law called the right to roam. It says that you can camp anywhere in nature, on anyone's land, for free, as long as you respect the environment. You can pitch a tent in a stunning field that technically belongs to a farmer, and it's all good. Imagine that in your country, you pitch in a tent on the Colonel's ranch. The story would end very differently, right? So that's it. A country that struggles all year just to live intensely for 3 weeks. And maybe that's exactly why they enjoy it, in a way that we, with sun all year round, have forgotten how to do. But there's something even more surreal about these people, and it has nothing to do with the sun. It has to do with money, a lot of money. Norway has a vault, a national vault, called the Fund. It started in the 90s, filled with oil money they found at the bottom of the sea. And today, this fund holds more than $2 trillion. $2 trillion? It's the largest sovereign fund on the planet. Just so you have an idea, it owns about 1.5% of all publicly listed companies in the entire world. When you buy an iPhone, a little bit of the profit, in some way, ends up in the pockets of Norwegians. Do the math per person and brace yourself. It's more than $390,000 for every Norwegian, including the baby born yesterday. A child comes into the world, lets out its first cry, and is already on paper a millionaire. Now picture this. Imagine the richest man in your city taking the bus in the morning, wearing a rain jacket, and nobody gives him a second look. Well, that's how it is in Norway. You'd swear that a country like that would be all about Lamborghinis, gold chains, and showing off, right? It's actually the complete opposite. In Norway, there's an unwritten, almost sacred social rule known as the Law of Jante. And what it really says is just one thing: don't think you're better than anyone else. It's a country where showing off is considered rude, where flaunting that you have more money than your neighbor is almost a social crime. The company owner eats lunch in the same cafeteria as the employees. The politician rides his bike to work in the pouring rain and thinks that's just totally normal. Just think about the cultural gap. In Brazil, the guy pays for his iPhone in 18 installments just so he can post the story holding it inside his friend's financed car. In Norway, the guy who actually has real money makes a point of looking just like everyone else. They invented anti-showing off. And look at the contrast. The Norwegian baby is born with a millionaire's paperwork, while the Brazilian baby is born and already joins the line for public health care. And you know what's even crazier? It works. It's one of the countries with the smallest gap between rich and poor in the world. The garbage collector lives well, the teacher lives well, everyone lives more or less the same. A place where asking, "How much do you make?" hardly says who's more important, because there, no one can act like they're better than anyone else. But hold on, because these organized and discreet people have a story you know by heart. You just didn't know it was theirs. Norway wasn't born rich. For centuries, it was a poor, cold country of fishermen and farmers where people left because life was so hard. By the way, this is where the Vikings came from, those bearded guys with boats who terrorized Europe 1,000 years ago. Today, Norwegians are the most polite and peaceful people you'll ever meet, but their great-great-grandfathers were literally warrior raiders. They've evolved, right? And the country's postcard image is the fjords. The most famous is the Geringer Fjord, protected by UNESCO, with green cliffs plunging into the sea and waterfalls streaming from every direction. There are places there that look like movie sets, and it's no wonder. Up there, there's a cliff called Trolltunga, or the Troll's Tongue, a slab of rock that juts out into the void more than 700 meters high. People hike for hours and hours just to take a picture sitting on the edge with a huge drop below. I mentioned trolls, and check this out. Norway is the land of forest trolls, fairy tales, and magical mountains. And this is where the reference comes in that's going to blow your mind. Remember that animated movie about the ice princess with the talking snowman and the song every kid in Brazil sang until their parents begged them to stop? That's right, Disney actually sent their team to Norway to research the look of that kingdom. The architecture of the wooden churches, the fjords, the mountains, even the traditional clothing all came from there. The setting of that movie is basically Norway dressed up as a cartoon. You've already taken your kid here without ever leaving the couch. And it doesn't stop at the animated movie. That 80s song, Take On Me, the one that's still played at parties and in commercials, Norwegian band. That painting, the scream, the one with the desperate person holding their face, which became a meme all over the world, the painter was Norwegian. The greatest chess player in history, the guy who beats computers, he's Norwegian. Norway has been infiltrating your culture for decades, and you never even noticed. And now, the painful topic, soccer. Write this down and cry. Norway is one of the only national teams in the world with a positive record against Brazil, and the only one that has faced Brazil and never lost. There were 2 games, 2 wins for them, and 2 draws. The cruelest was at the '98 World Cup in France. Brazil, with Ronaldo, Rivaldo, Roberto Carlos, losing 2-1 to a team of blonde guys whose names most people couldn't even spell. A penalty in the dying moments. A national trauma. And guess what? In 2026, after 28 years without going to the World Cup, Norway is back. With Holland, that monster who scores goals even in his sleep. They beat Italy, steamrolled everyone in the qualifiers. So the ghost is back, and we still haven't managed to get our revenge. But hey, get your wallet ready, because living in this paradise, or even just visiting, comes at a price, and it's the kind of price that can make you feel sick. Norway is beautiful, Norway is organized, and Norway is by far one of the most expensive places in the whole world to put anything in your mouth. I'll give you some numbers, so take a deep breath first. A simple beer at an ordinary bar in Oslo costs between 110 and 130 kroner. Converted, that's about $11 to $13. For one beer, it's not a bucket, it's not a premium bottle, it's just your everyday can of draft beer. A cocktail at a bar easily goes over $16. A simple lunch, nothing fancy, easily hits about $18 per person. And don't think you can just run off to fast food to save money either, because even the Big Mac, the most universal and identical burger on the planet, which is supposed to be cheap anywhere in the world, is one of the most expensive in the entire world in Norway. Just the sandwich by itself, no fries, no soda, costs over $7. There's a global index that uses the price of a Big Mac to compare countries, and Norway is always at the top, competing with Switzerland for the most expensive burger on the map. When even McDonald's is robbing you, you get just how big the problem is. And don't think you can get away by buying drinks at the supermarket either, because in Norway, the government controls the sale of hard liquor. There's a network of state-run stores, and that's the only place you can buy wine and spirits. They have set opening and closing hours. Forgot to buy it on Saturday morning? Too bad, you'll be drinking juice. The state decided you'll drink less, period. Still want to live there? Renting a decent apartment in Oslo will cost you a small fortune every month, the kind that would make even a complaining Sao Paulo resident seem like they're living rent-free. And people pay it with a smile. And here's the contrast nobody tells you about. Why do Norwegians put up with this so easily? Because the salaries keep up. A waiter, a cleaner, someone with a simple job earns a salary that, when converted, would leave a lot of college-educated professionals in Brazil speechless. So for the locals, $13 for a beer is just a beer. For you, the tourist, that's a good chunk of your hotel daily rate vanishing in a single sip. It's the kind of country where the supermarket cashier lives well and it's the tourist who ends up crying. So let me ask you, hand on heart, would you pay $13 for a single beer? Think before you answer. Because in Norway, there are people paying that every single day without even looking at the price and thinking it's cheap. But if you think their money stops at expensive beer and a $2 trillion fund, hold on, because Norway's real wealth isn't in the price of a drink, it's in the life that money buys. And that's when you really start to feel a little jealous. Forget about the expensive beer for a second. Look at what Norwegians really get. Public healthcare that actually works. Free university, even for foreigners in many cases. When a child is born, the mother and father split almost a year of paid leave. 5 weeks of vacation per year is the minimum, guaranteed by law. And that giant fund is there precisely to make sure the math adds up for your grandkids. It's a country that thinks, let's save so things will still work 50 years from now, the opposite of let the next government deal with it. And that's why, year after year, Norway shows up at the top of the lists of the happiest, most developed, and best countries to live in the world. It's not luck, it's a plan. These are people who, decades ago, were poor and decided not to blow their oil windfall all at once. They saved, invested, and shared. Imagine if Brazil had done that with the pre-salt oil reserves? Yeah, better not even imagine it. It hurts. Now, remember back at the beginning when I said you have a little piece of Norway inside you? The time has come. That pink salmon in your sushi, the one you ordered at the Japanese restaurant, thinking it was the most oriental thing ever? It's Norwegian. And what's more, raw salmon and sushi was pretty much a Norwegian invention. Let me explain this craziness to you. Back in the 80s, Norway had so much salmon that they couldn't sell it all no matter how much they produced. So they came up with a plan, complete with the name, Project Japan. It went all the way to Japan to try to get the Japanese to eat salmon raw in sushi. And do you know what the Japanese said? No way. They thought the color was wrong, the smell was weird, even the shape of the fish's head was strange. To them, raw salmon was disgusting. But the Norwegians didn't give up. They kept at it for 10 years. Dinners at the embassy, marketing campaigns, fish almost for free, with just one condition: it had to be sold as sushi. And it worked. Today, salmon is the most beloved sushi filling on the planet in 17 out of 20 countries surveyed. Norway controls more than half of all the salmon in the world and exports to 113 countries, including Brazil, obviously. Did you catch how crazy that is? You went to the sushi place on the corner, paid a lot for a combo, thought you were the ultimate expert in Eastern culture, and you were actually eating the most brilliant marketing move ever invented by a bunch of blonde folks from the cold. You ate in Norway thinking it was Japan. And to top off the irony, Norway got rich selling oil, but today it's the country with the most electric cars in the world. In 2025, almost 97% of new cars sold there were electric. 1 in every 5 was a Tesla. Think about that. The country that got rich off fossil fuels was the first to ditch gasoline. They made money off the problem and got ahead by buying the solution. But hold on, because all this light, all this sun that never sets, all this happiness has a side that doesn't fit in the story. Remember that almost 3-meter-long creature I promised at the beginning? And a place where the law requires you to be armed? The time has come. All that beautiful story about the sun that never sets has a dark twin, because the same sun that lights up the summer midnight simply disappears in the winter. In northern Norway, the sun sets and doesn't come back for weeks, even months. It's the polar night. Darkness in the morning, in the afternoon, at night. The whole country that goes wild with joy in the summer has to get through a winter of darkness, and that takes its toll. It's a region where taking care of your mental health in the dark is a serious matter, taken seriously. The paradise of light is, for half the year, a kingdom of shadow. And way up north, on a frozen archipelago called Svalbard, lives the cherry on top of this dark cake. Svalbard is perhaps the northernmost inhabited place on the planet. And there's a law that sounds like a joke, but it's real. You're basically required to leave town armed with a rifle. Not because of robbers, not because of people, it's because of the polar bear. This is the nearly 3-meter-tall animal, the largest land carnivore in the world, that sees humans as a menu item. In Svalbard, there are more polar bears than people. So anyone who goes for a walk outside the little town takes a rifle, takes a flare gun, and prays they won't have to use them. Just imagine the contrast. The same country of the discreet billionaire on a bicycle, of salmon marketing, of electric cars, has a place where humans aren't at the top of the food chain, where nature still calls the shots. And that's where Norway truly reveals itself. It's the land of the midnight sun and the polar night. It's the richest country that pretends to be poor. It's the paradise of happiness that spends months in the dark. It's the most civilized place in the world where, in one corner, you could end up as bear food. Light and shadow, side by side all the time. Because in the end, what stays with you from Norway isn't the 2 trillion fund. It's the feeling that there's a different way to live. A place that saved money for its grandchildren, that taught the rich not to show off, that learned to value 3 weeks of sunshine more than we value a whole year of beach weather. But it's also a place that charges a high price, both in kroner and in darkness, to truly be a part of it. Not everyone who posts a photo at the fjord could handle the winter. And remember that detail I said every Brazilian carries in their soul without knowing, way back at the beginning? Here's the final irony. The only team Brazil has never beaten is precisely the one from this country that's our opposite in every way. Cold, where we're warm; discreet, where we show off; organized, where we improvise; dark for half the year, where we have sun to spare. It's as if the universe created the anti-Brazil and even made it beat us at soccer. Maybe that's why they come out on top. While we play with improvisation and talent, they play with planning, discipline, and penalties taken with a cool head. The same cool head that saved up $2 trillion. But in 2026, the Ghost returned to the World Cup after 28 years. And this time, who knows, maybe we'll settle the score. So here's the question. Would you trade Brazil's year-round sunshine for Norway's money, order, and happiness, knowing that half the year is spent in darkness? Or would you rather admit that it's only beautiful to visit in the summer? If you've made it this far, leave a comment. Midnight Sun. I want to see who can handle the winter. And don't forget to check out the video that's popping up on your screen, okay? See you there. Thanks everyone, and see you next time.